panel discussion. We have our moderator, Tony Low, who is also our co-chair for the Cybersecurity Awareness and Advisory Program. The theme for today's discussion is on a safer cyberspace for Singapore businesses. Over to you, Tony.
Hi guys. Thank you, Yvonne. First, I'd like to thank all the speakers, the fellow speakers who have spent time preparing the materials, also sharing good insights in for the past the whole duration of this event as well. So in the next segment is about 30 minutes. I will do a bit of Q&A, get some insight discussion with the speakers. Maybe I will start off with Craig, maybe because he started off the presentation, right? Craig, hi. Maybe the first questions I'll present to Craig is the given the increase in cyber threats during COVID situation, and the situation is likely to persist, will companies be experiencing similar or more sophisticated attacks, and what are your views like, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, we can all agree that it cuts across two things. One is an organization preparedness around their rapid deployment of digital services, whatever they are, including working from home. I mean, that beggars the question, right? Their preparedness with respect to those new working conditions, their operational cadence, their ability to react and respond to incidents, obviously are all predicated on the COVID-19 reality. And the second is the ability and the willingness of threat actors to do what they do, reskin existing attacks in response to COVID, and obviously exploiting the natural people who are not prepared on an individual layer to defend themselves in manifest ways. And so obviously the overall trend, you know, I go back to my presentation with Dr. Edward Stoltz, who said you are almost guaranteed to see to be victimized in some way, shape, or form with respect to this overarching trend.
Okay. Maybe just a double click on your second point about willingness of the threat actor to attack. But as an individual, what would be your advice in terms of to reduce or increase that barrier for an individual?
Yeah.
To make sure that they don't prone to those attacks. What would be key advice that you would like to present?
Well, part of my presentation did discuss this, but it didn't really, it's about more of the organizational strategy versus an individual strategy. And I guess to unpack your question just a little bit in my response is, one is, you know, we talked about security awareness training and testing. I mean, and I also promoted the organization to set down some policies and guidance to help people help themselves. And one key aspect around that is really underscoring an existing cybersecurity message, which is be skeptical, be paranoid, be cautious. You will not get in trouble from your organization in exhibiting any of those traits, and to the point where you will reject somebody's attachment and say, I'm not going to open your attachment because I'm really not sure it was you. And then I'll also wedge in something that's an emerging trend as well under the banner of COVID is email hijacking, email thread hijacking. What that is the intelligent hackers getting into a legit email thread and responding in real time to that thread from a victimized account. So proposing as somebody else and injecting themselves into the conversation. It's a real social trickery, which is very, very clever and easy to implement. So, you know, on an individual basis and that security awareness and being guided by the organization, those are actions that are easy to do, require some thought and some consideration, but obviously will help reduce that risk. And the key term there is be skeptical, cautious, and paranoid. And so to flip it around in terms of the hackers or the threat actors' willingness or abilities, like a lot of them are very clever and using their existing tool sets, but reskinned under COVID. And so all of the speakers, sorry to dominate the discussion there, but I'll just finish up, is all of the speakers here today all talked about the risk of phishing and malware. And phishing as an attack vector has tool support in the hacker community where it has ready to go templates that can be set up in a matter of minutes. And then from there, the hacker is fire and forget. They can just spam out whatever link they want to any willing or unwilling victim. And so their willingness to really step up to the plate and conduct their shenanigans has never ever been more easy for them under this age of uncertainty and so on.
I think that's a clear statement there. You mentioned really be skeptical. I think consistently we see a lot of e-learning and training around phishing and malware. I think one of the key messages you kind of brought up very clearly, right? Every single individual has their due diligence to play. I think one of the due diligence is always question things that you received, and before you act, think. I think that's where the skepticism has to be in every one of us. Thanks, Craig. That's a very good answer. Maybe I'll jump on to since you mentioned about training, I'll jump on to Dr. Stan. Hi, Dr. Stan. Hi. I think one of you mentioned in your presentation, you talk about cyber fit. And I think in most SME today, we are lean and the staff have multiple roles, right? Can you also share a bit how the SMEs are able to uplift their existing so-called practices around training? At the same time, can they even deploy things like something that is sophisticated as a zero trust at a high level in their organization? Dr. Stan?
Very good question. Thank you. The problem with SME is quite simple. They focus on their core business, right? And quite often we see small and medium businesses who could not afford skilled professional, not even talking about cybersecurity, but even in general IT tasks. And basically, yes, definitely training is very important. They need to understand that emails could be sent from fake accounts and could pretend to be from somebody else. That we do. But what is important, I think, is that SME should work closely with managed service providers and managed security service providers, because currently it's quite affordable, and at least those service providers, they have staff trained in computer science and computer security, and they can actually help them to get their systems running and protect them from the attacks and help them to recover from the attacks. Because sooner or later, you see, the problem we have in cybersecurity, yes, we understand, and actually there were quite technical presentation today talking about different approaches and what we should do. But the problem is quite simple. The only secure computer is the one which you put in isolated room, guarded by a couple of guys with machine guns, disconnected from the internet and turned off, right? If you turn it on and connect to internet, it's already a problem. And we have to find the balance between our ability to work and to do our job and to do our job in new digital world, and not being completely insecure and completely vulnerable. So you train yourself, you look for professional help, and you look for the solution which helps you to recover, because there is no guarantee that you are not going to be a victim, and no guarantee that your data would not be stolen. Encryption and other technologies helps a lot and can actually decrease the level of exposure significantly. However, it's never goes to the zero. So recovering from the successful attack is no less important than ability to protect yourself from majority of the attacks.
I think that's a very clear statement you mentioned in your answers about it's never about a guaranteed safety, and there's always help available. It's just a matter of finding the right amount of help. I guess we are in this new world, which is digital. Everybody is connected. There's no way to have a secure room with data locked in that's not connected to the internet. That's not possible. I think we all need help. I think this is a session that collectively we are reaching out to the SMEs, and SMEs can have the first exposure, what's available to them. I think this is a very good, thanks Dr. Stan, thank you. Next, I will just move on to Chun Hao. Hi, Chun Hao. It's very good. You mentioned about some of the new initiative, or the new, in fact, it's going to be passed, right? So I think one of the questions we got was based on PDBC's enforcement decision involving Singapore SMEs. Do you think that our companies are becoming more prepared to mitigate personal data breaches? Chun Hao?
I would like to answer yes, but I think that the number of our enforcement actions or our publication of enforcement actions taken on SMEs cannot be a barometer for us to tell whether or not more SMEs are more ready or more capable or competent to deal with data breaches. That is why I'm here today, right? So I would think that so long as there is a new entrance, new businessman proprietor coming in, set up businesses, there will always be opportunity and the space for us to educate and to encourage businessmen to be confident about the use of data. And if they are able to put in place the necessary safeguards and the defenses, then they can be ready to reap the benefit of data use out there to help expand their business.
Okay, I think you mentioned about the barometer. So I guess from an SME operator, if I'm a business owner, what are the indicators I need to look out for in terms of you mentioned about the gauge or the barometers that I should be going to after?
Okay, so if you're asking about how would we then measure whether or not our SMEs are ready, right? Do we actually look at, am I getting a lot of cases coming in? Are all these cases coming in, the numbers of cases coming in, would they then indicate that the numbers are going up and the need for more education, or whether or not SME's ability to deal with cybersecurity is deteriorating? I would say no, right? I would say no. Okay, we can't really use the number of cases to tell all this, right? It will depend on a lot of other circumstances. Maybe suddenly there's an influx of very capable hackers out there, or you can also maybe the business environment. After some time, people are getting more complacent, right? Users themselves, customers, they themselves are careless with their data. And because of one side being careless and the other side not so much in reminding their customers that, no, please be careful with this as well. So I think everybody has a part to play in this.
Okay. I mean, I think the education part is really important here for SME as well. I think this is where we need to reach out to SME in terms of the publications available and where they can actually seek help virtually. I mean, self-service, I think, is one of the mechanisms to reach out to more SMEs. Thank you, Junao. I think I'll jump gear to Mr. Yam. Hi, Mr. Yam. Hi. Thanks for the ABCD, which is actually very easy to remember. I think this is something, but one thing for sure is, I mean, we have the ABCD framework, right? But we also see there have been more reported cases in Singapore with SMEs experiencing cyber attacks during the COVID-19 this period. Will we be expecting to see more in 2021? And what kind of attacks do you think is going to increase, or is it just the same pattern will repeat this year? Mr. Yam?
Hi, Tony. Thanks for the questions. My view is that so long as the attackers find it easy to just use the old methods, they will just continue to use it, right? There's no need to go and expend a lot of energy to create new things and so forth. So I will still see some of the attacks that are happening today continue tomorrow, right? Especially ransomware, because that's what the attacker wants to do, right? Make money. Right? Ransomware is how they make money. All right. All the other things are the espionage and IPs. Those are a different class of attackers, right? But as far as most of the cyber criminals concerned, what they're doing is trying to make money. So ransomware is definitely one of them. Right. Of course, the other group of place where you can get money going forward is where all the cryptocurrency lies, right? Yeah. So if the people who are keeping all the cryptocurrencies, they don't do the security well, all right, they'll be losing money. And in those cases, once they can breach the wallets, is a big time reward. Yeah. So as far as the SME is concerned, like I said, we understand their predicament. So that's why we started this solutions or service to help them. And like I said in one of my slides, cybersecurity is a teamwork. So it's not a case whereby, oh, CSA came out with this, which means all the other companies got no business. No, that's wrong. All right. The design of ABCD is such that you can deploy ABCD without replacing any of your current security solution. Our job is to complement and protect those security solutions that even you have. All right. So this is the design that we have put in place. Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks for the answers, Mr. Yam. I think this is where increasingly, so I think the tricks of it is it doesn't matter how big or small a company is, they are prone to attack to the same set of issues, right? I think ransomware is actually I recently ran a session with SMEs in other process engineering. They actually look at it. Ransomware to them is important because they have a lot of IP data that they cap internally. They want to those are of high price. I think that's a good point to raise. I will move here to our speaker, Madam Mrs. Fong. Hi. In your opening speech, I think there was a lot of discussion about maybe some form of cybersecurity master plan, and there are a number of initiatives listed in the master plan itself. Some of them are focused on Singapore SMEs. What were CSA's key considerations in mind when it comes to this initiative for SMEs? Ms. Fong, Gwenda?
Yeah, thanks, Tony. So I think when we thought about what SMEs, how we can help SMEs kind of protect themselves better, we broke it down into, I suppose, you think about the steps of what is needed. So they first need to be aware of cybersecurity as an issue, of cybersecurity as a risk management issue. Then that's why we are developing some resources and toolkits to help with the C-suite, with the SME owners, with the business leaders, to basically help them to understand cybersecurity as a risk management issue that's not a technical issue, and to kind of frame the conversation in a way that they would understand that it is the executive, the C-suite level kind of decision on the trade-offs that need to be made. So there is that amount of that level of outreach to business leaders. And then if you think about the next stage, so after the business leaders have buy-in and awareness that, okay, so if they realize that it is a big issue for them, the next step really is they need to know what to do, right? Because it doesn't always translate that even if you know that cyber is an issue that you need to look at, it doesn't translate that the organization will know what to do about it. That's why we've developed, we are in the process of developing some tools, some self-assessment tools that will help businesses to better figure out where their gaps are and what are the processes that need to be put in place. We're coming up with an internet cyber hygiene portal, as I mentioned earlier, such that companies can go there and basically do a self-assessment of their domain, email, and connectivity hygiene levels, and then it comes with practical, actionable steps and what are the gaps, and then they know what then needs to be addressed. We're also coming up with this idea of exercise in the box. Is something that we're actually working with the UK on. So it's a guide that basically helps companies to conduct cyber exercises, which we know that is very important because as I mentioned earlier, you have fire evacuation plans, your fire drills, because you need to keep these plans warm, so to speak. You need people to know what to do if you suspect something. Who do I report to? How do I manage the public communications? How do I communicate to my customers, my stakeholders? So we're developing the tools that basically help as a resource for SMEs to figure out what the gaps might be and how they need to then develop the processes and have them in place. Then the third big category after we address the awareness, after we address the kind of knowledge gap, really the last bit is how do we help SMEs adopt and implement good cyber hygiene measures. So it's not enough just for Yam and his team to say these are the 7 essentials. It's all at the level of principle, right? Know your assets, encrypt your data, but how do we lower the barrier, lower the adoption barrier for SME who is sold on the idea and cyber is important, but what can they then do about it? That's why Yam and his team have been working quite hard to develop this security as a service solution, such that you reduce the barrier or the need for the SMEs to develop their own or to piece together, different kind of commercial products to put together a cybersecurity configuration that addresses all 7 essentials. But how can we have all-in-one integrated package or solution that we can make available to SMEs and subsidize part of the costs even under the Productivity Solutions grant, such that it reduces the barrier from the knowledge point of view as well as from the cost point of view. So collectively, we think these are the steps that are needed. And this is the thinking and approach behind the master plan. It's how do we, address the awareness, the knowledge, and reduce adoption barriers. Because it's not important, it's not enough just to kind of tell people that cyber is an issue. I think increasingly people know it is an issue, but then the gap between knowledge and what do I then do about it in terms of taking practical steps, it can be quite big for SMEs. So we're trying to reduce that barrier and address that in a way that can be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, just to follow on to that question, so for the C-suite and the executive, based on your assessment and based on CSA assessment, are they at a state of awareness, or do they have some form of knowledge that they need to beef up, or it's just more of executing in the current state that go through the hygiene? Sorry.
Yeah, I think the level of awareness has probably shifted over the years, right? So if you think about maybe 3 years ago, before WannaCry, before the SingHealth incident on Singapore, maybe executives tend to still, not think that it's that big an issue. But the fact that we have these very high profile and very significant data breaches or cybersecurity incidents, not just in Singapore, but globally, I think any business owner worth his salt will know that cyber is a real risk. So I think the level of awareness possibly has changed and increased over the years. But I think, as I mentioned in my speech earlier, even though a lot of companies actually do have a form of digital footprint now, but actually many of them still don't have any cybersecurity measures in place. So my personal assessment is that the awareness is there, but they don't quite know what to do about it. So that's why we think it's important to have tools and toolkits and resources to help point out the gaps in terms of your connectivity and domain kind of health, but also in your processes, which is where the exercise in the box comes in. So those are basically holding up a mirror to the organization. It kind of reflects to them like these are the gaps. It provides some specific kind of diagnosis in specific areas, and then they can then know like these are the solutions that they can put in place. So that would be my personal assessment of the issue.
Yeah, I think thanks for pointing out the mirror, looking at the mirror of the enterprise. The toolkit really will help, at least from that, what to do next, because as you mentioned earlier, the scope is really big from a cybersecurity footprint standpoint, and it's really to target what are things that matters to them most. I think the toolkit will really at least give them some form of report and examining where they are today, giving them a good head start. So maybe I'll jump back to Craig, since we talked about the toolkit and understanding, having to have a way of telling the SME themselves, the business themselves, what do they need to do. Maybe, Craig, the question will be based on the cyber attack on companies, majority for actually of low tech, I mean, to be honest. And for SMEs, right, what are the ways that SME can start to can look at and quickly deploy on their own to reduce of any of this such cyber attacks on their own at a much lower burial cost, correct?
Yeah, and you can hear me, yes?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Great question, and it's a easy answer, to be honest. I mean, it's easy with respect to how I'm going to express it. I myself have, I'm a fan of big, easy wins. And in my relation through the presentation earlier, I did make a mention of a divide and conquer approach. And I also mentioned asset management or asset inventory. One necessary component of asset inventory is business criticality. So this application resource, if it stopped to function, would I be able to continue doing business? The second dimension is that in the SME space is they actually have somewhat of an advantage over the larger enterprises. And that advantage is that they can roll out a solution, whatever that solution is, quite rapidly, as long as they have some basic skills in place to implement it. And so what that means is if they are able to approach it from a divide and conquer perspective, and they can roll out a very specific or tactical security improvement to that asset, then they're far ahead, and that makes them more agile in the face of large enterprises who, approach it more holistically and more comprehensively, and it takes them longer to deploy. And so, for example, if you have a small business of 100 employees, it makes that overarching management task and the number of assets that you need to protect a lot smaller. So this only begs the question is, where do they go for that type of expertise? And I am most certain that within the borders of Singapore, there are a lot of smaller boutique security-oriented organizations. One aspect I didn't mention, but I am speaking to you from Australia, where I live. One emerging trend over the last 18 months has been a CISO on-demand service, where a seasoned professional who's no longer, officially, employed by some organization can actually come and consult for an hour a week or a day, a month, that kind of thing. to help advise and shape what the easy wins that you can progress there. I think the end of the day is, what are your risks, what are your assets, and what are the measures that you can use to combat the risks to those assets?
So the follow-on question is, if you look at it from a divide and conquer and easy win, what's the typical duration for that easy win to be completed?
It's
in
a
that
good
sense,
question.
I mean, based on your experience.
Yeah, it's a good question, but you know, we have a saying, and I'm sure you've heard this one, but how long is a piece of string, right? It's really a matter of what skills do the implementers, do the practitioners have? What resources do you have to help you along that journey, or deploy a piece of kit, or derive a strategy that manifests into actual action and investment? And so the length of time can range from a matter of a day to a matter of a year. It really depends on what the scope and what the threats you're mitigating are, what the impact to the business would be, and so on.
Okay, thanks for that.
This is Yam. Can I jump in here, Craig?
Sure. That'll be nice.
So as Greg was mentioning, all right, about this CISO as a service, right? So if you see the problem statements that we have highlighted when we came out with the ABCD solution, is one of those things about lack of manpower and expertise. So actually in the ABCD program, all right, while I use the word secure, provide security assurance, actually the security assurance assistance is actually a sort of a CISO as a service. That means we actually get the MSSP to talk to the customers, whoever the SME is, and understand the environment, understand requirements, and then provide the security solution. So it's not just a blindly implementing that ABCD. If they need other things, maybe based on the business, they need something from RSA or from some other solutioning, they actually will get that advice also. So that is how we try, as far as CSA is concerned, try to make it to help the people, to bring up their security posture.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Yam. So since Mr. Yam jumped in, you talk about the ABCD and talk about the security assurance. What are the solutions that you feel SMEs can implement on their own, in addition to those security assurance, Mr. Yam? Maybe some technologies, if you think that it's maybe one of the key pillars or foundations that you guys will look at generally from a security assurance point of view.
Yeah, so I recommend that all of you watch the video, all right? In that video, basically, we have put together 3 technical solutions, all right? Typically, what people call them is, one is endpoint protection. Some people will call them endpoint detection and response. Some people call it user and entity behavior analysis. Basically, you get all of those. And you also get automated incident response. That means the analyst at the MSSP will able to look at all the attacks that's happening and stop that. So without having to worry, so you don't have to worry about all these kind of issues. That's how we intend to do the business. And I also heard, some of the things that Acronis has talked about. And so it's not that we are closing the door to all of these things, but we will find collaborative players as we start to get more and more people adopting the solution. All right. But we are also mindful. If we put too many things and we drive up the cost, then adoption will also drop. Okay. So these are some of the things we are trying to balance and to help the people. That's all we're trying to say. We are saying cybersecurity is a teamwork. Okay. Our solution is just a demonstration of how the concept should be done. All right. And we welcome other players, and I do have queries from other players on how to come on board this program. Yeah.
Okay, good. I think you clearly mentioned the video. Look at it from an individual feeding onto the enterprise, where the desktop itself is actually the entry point to a lot of this attack, which is what we see common today. I think mentioned in some of the presentation earlier, we talked about malware, which is just an email and individual wrongfully clicked, right? So with that, I would like to jump back to Dr. Stan, right? I think in that context where we talk about endpoint protection, and we also see there is a trend where it's not, regardless big or small companies, right? They are all infected by ransomware. So do you think that SMEs, because they have less exposure, are they less likely to be hit by ransomware in that sense? And you did mention there's certain proactive approach that the SMEs themselves can actually take just to make sure that they don't fall into the trap of that ransomware. Dr. Stan?
Good question. Well, actually, I would start probably. We recently did a survey, and we asked actually SMBs all over the world what they think about cyber attacks. Surprisingly, 65% of SME owners, they answered in a way like, I do not believe I'm going to be a target for the attack because I am too small. I'm doing my own small business. I deliver food in my city and that's it. So why I'm interested to anyone? So as such, many SMEs all over the world right now, they are not prepared. And Gwenda said actually that here in Singapore, we invest a lot into increasing the awareness, but still we should not in any way spend less effort on that, because SMEs, they have their own mentality and mindset, and we need to educate them. That's one thing. The other thing actually is that for cyber criminals, it does not mean anything, whether you're small or big. You're just an asset. Every computer is an asset. Every phone is an asset. And the reasons and the ways they can use it, besides the simple way like encrypting everything on your hard drive and then trying to get some bitcoins from you, there could be multiple. You could be used as just yet another hope to kind of hide the actual attacker. You can be used as a part of botnet. You can be used as anything. And so if you're a cyber criminal, you do not distinguish like this is Microsoft Corporation, and if I encrypt their data, I can probably start begging for billions of dollars. And this is a small food court outlet. He has one computer, and as such, I am not attacking it. It's automated. It's an industry. It doesn't matter whom to attack. And every system, every workload is just an asset. It could worth more, it could worth less, but in any case, it's an asset you can overtake, and as such, you can somehow make a value of it. And since it's automated, it basically doesn't require anything from you as an attacker, but CPU clocks. So that perception that small business is less vulnerable to computer attacks is wrong. And we need to educate small businesses that they actually might be even more vulnerable to the attacks for very simple reason, because companies like Microsoft or Google or any big companies, they do prepare that attack will happen. They do place different scenarios. They do trainings, and those trainings includes the simulation of the attack. And they see what systems they can recover, what systems they could not recover, and how they fix it. As Gwenda mentioned, you need to have a plan, and big corporations, they do have a plan. SMEs do not have a plan. And for SMEs, for 70% of them, basically losing their data due to encryption or due to simple deletion of the data means that in next 12 months, you are out of business. That's my view. Make sense?
Thanks. Makes sense. I think it doesn't matter how big or small, the tax that you get is the same. So it is really on the risk side, which what we have seen, heard this morning is really which are the likelihood that you will get attacked and what are the trainings that we need to beef up in terms of awareness in the organization as well. So I got one more question for all the panelists today, right? I think I'd like to just get a feedback from all the panelists today for this question here. What is a safer cyberspace for our Singapore businesses, in your opinion? Maybe I'll start off with Glenda.
What's a safer cyberspace? I suppose one where businesses and consumers can transact knowing that their digital transactions, data, assets aren't going to be compromised. I suppose the analogy is almost like in the physical space, right? I know in my speech I use a physical analogy, but I think that's a useful one because it's easy to understand. So in Singapore, you walk around, even at night, you feel safe because you know that there's law and order, that you know there are police who will respond if necessary, and it's just a general sense of safety, and you can go about your business without worries of a knife attack or being shot or anything. So I think what it means in the digital realm, it's similar, where there is a trust that your transactions are safe, that the government, for our part, will basically take care of securing the digital commons or the core digital infrastructure. So like our telco networks, our 5G networks as we go into the next generation networks. So that's equivalent to, you know, like you trust that the police kind of manage crime on the streets. But there is also a responsibility for each of us as business owners, as individuals, to also protect your own assets. Again, using the physical analogy, just because we know that, you know, that there are police on the streets, it doesn't mean that no crime is no crime, right? It's a very common tagline that we're familiar with. We still lock our doors when we get home, or when we go out. We still take general, like, reasonable, sensible measures to keep our physical possessions safe. We don't leave your wallets lying around in a public place. So it's similar. There's a role for government to play to protect the digital commons. There is a role for individual enterprises and citizens to play in protecting themselves. And collectively, when we raise our overall cybersecurity posture and hygiene levels, it deters the criminals, right? Because why would they want to spend so much time kind of trying to attack us when there are so many other less well secured computers in the world? So that's the aim, to make it basically not worth the criminals' time and effort. And that's what I think it would take, and that's what it would mean, so that we can reap the benefits of digitalization without fear of constantly losing data and losing digital assets. Yep, that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Gwen. I think I like the analogy that you use about physical security and police. Like, we can walk around. In fact, today, sometimes if you go in the food court, you will see people like putting their phones and wallets on the table as a marker for the thing. I think this is where the sense of security that we have from a physical sense, hopefully we can reach some form of near to utopia, where we feel very safe to even act on, do or transact anything on the digital realm, which is actually is going to help not just from the society, also reaching out to various parts of society. So thank you, Brenda. Thank you. What about maybe Mr. Yam? What's your view like in terms of a safer cyberspace for Singapore businesses, Mr. Yam?
My job is to make sure what Gwenda says comes true. That's yeah. All right.
You're okay.
Yeah, basically we'll try to secure the country and the people against as many threats we can. All right, and then allow them to do their work and do their business safely. Yeah.
Okay. That's nice. It was short and sweet. Thank you, Mr. Yang. Maybe I'll move on to Junhao. Junhao, what do you think? What do you think is a safer cyberspace for our Singapore businesses around, especially SMEs, and what are your words for them in this new world, and what are the roles that you think they should play as well? Junhao?
Actually, coming from PDPC, I really hope that Singapore can have a very mature digital identity and zero knowledge proof, whereby the level of anonymity for users of the cyberspace is so high that if there is any data breach, right? If a hacker is to secure, say, over 1 million lines of data, what he gets are a bunch of random numbers, whereby none of the lines can be attributed to any individuals or person, right? Although they say that they jokingly say that when that happens, maybe I'll be out of job, but I'll be happily going out of job, man, to make sure that personal data is so protected in Singapore that any breach or any leak, individuals are still safe and remain safe in Singapore. That's my line.
Well, that's good, because I think this is where, I think it's a dream. I think hopefully one day we could eliminate things like identity theft or that matter, spoofing. Thank you, Junhao. I move here to what about the technologies, the technology provider, in terms of what do you mean? What do you see in your opinion, a cyberspace to our Singapore businesses? Maybe I'll start off with Craig then. Hi, Craig.
So from your question from a vendor's perspective, what is the question?
In your personal opinion, what do you think is a safer cyberspace for our Singapore businesses? How do you envision that?
Well, clearly everyone's going to go out and buy RSA. The one aspect is, since we're on the thread of physical analogies, I mean, a lot of cyberspace is incumbent upon the user, the driver, to drop it into the real world. You're not going to go out and purposely crash your car, but accidents happen. And the idea is that, cyberspace is kind of very similar in that regard. Don't do anything, but don't link, start, tweeting out all your personal details, account information. I think one aspect is, cyber threats in reality are international, and the a large proportion of most people are outside of the boundaries of Singapore itself, and so government intervention in that respect is necessary from a cooperation standpoint, meaning that there should, for the more egregious examples, there should be some repercussion internationally from the source country in order to have that source country or the place where the hackers originated to face some repercussions. Or, Singapore would, wield its hefty trade agreement gavel. So international cooperation or enhanced amount of international cooperation is a necessity. And then knowing that, you need technology or a backplane of technology to save people from themselves. And so does that mean, like, you buy insurance for your car when you crash it? Would you buy insurance for your business when you get ransom hacked? And that is a very, very real business model around many cyber security organizations who do sell cyber insurance in case you are or need to actually pay that ransom in that way. So I think a safer cyberspace includes that governmental level cooperation internationally, and of course better education for individuals around what they should or shouldn't do. And I think that those two things, supported by a backplane of technology, so for example, everybody could run around with a YubiKey and be safe from phishing. Those are the kinds of things that I think about in terms of a safer cyberspace.
Thank you. That's a nicely done. So, what about you? What's your opinion, Dr. Stan, in terms of your opinion about a safer cyberspace for our Singapore businesses? Your advice, Dr. Stan?
Well, I basically agree with Craig. indeed, cyberspace is intrinsically a global space. I mean, when you walk in the night in Singapore, you do not expect to meet with a bunch of Liverpool fans who just witness their favorite soccer team losing to other team, right? And as such, you basically, if it's inside Singapore in physical world, yes, Singapore did a great job, and it's probably one of the safest places in the world. In cyberspace, you constantly encounter guys from other countries, and basically even the attack can be international. As such, I actually agree completely with Craig that the only things you can do, first of all, Singapore can lead at least cybersecurity initiatives in the region, and maybe start talking to other countries and other regions. And you have to train your businesses, your citizens to be aware that unfortunately cyberspace will definitely keep you meeting very unpleasant guys from the countries you never heard about.
Thank you, Dr. Stan. I think it's a very thanks all the panelists for your opinion, your question, your answers as well, based on the questions that was being posted by me and by attendees within the call. I think that something to call out in this this whole session, the entire morning, is really, I think, it's everybody's responsibility in cybersecurity. I think it doesn't matter. It's not just only technology, which technology vendors will bring onto the table, and it's not just about understanding where you are in the cybersecurity journey, because it's as Gwenda has mentioned, it's a very huge topic to cover, and executives are actually scrambling because of yesterday I heard something about it's like 3 years of digital transformation done within 2 months because of the COVID and because of the circuit breaker. And this is hence I kind of accelerated a lot of this interest in terms of cybersecurity, how one can do. I think to tip it off, the analogy about physical security that what we enjoy today is similar to what we do, hopefully, to what we do on the cyber side, which Chun-Hao clearly mentioned. If we could essentially anonymize and essentially prevent any of this digital threat or digital theft, I think that's what a utopia will look like. Thank you, the panelists. I think that we will close off the Q&A. Yvonne, back to you.